It's been almost 2 decades since we started our journey to educate and help you take action so you may better manage your financial future. Our goal is to help you accomplish your life's purpose. This podcast reveals financial tips, strategies, and insights that will help you to set your financial goals and guide you along the way. This is Managing Your Financial Future, brought to you by the advisors at Lucia Capital Group. And we welcome you back to yet another exciting episode of, what is the show called, Professor Plum? Managing Your Financial Future?
So we got some really cool background music when you're talking like that?
I would love to have that. You know, we have that opening theme, which I think still features my voice, although since I can't hear it. But maybe we need some big fanfare. Something like that. What do you think? I mean, we are important people, at least in our minds. Talking about important things, important topics that have to do with retirement. I'm Johnny Dean. I'm not an advisor. I hang out with Professor Plum, who is Professor Rick Plum, certified financial planner, professional, and all of that. CFP forever and ever and ever. Not literally, but since the 80s.
I can't remember the exact date. That it was either 89 or 90.
Okay, so somewhere in there. But you've been doing this for a long time, and that lends a lot of credibility, I think, to what we have to say. And we've been doing these radio shows since the early 90s. We were doing TV in the mid-aughts, and I don't even know. I've lost track. But it's nice to be back. And one of the things that I wouldn't think we get a lot of mail on this topic, because pensions seem to have really gone by the wayside. Has that been your experience? I mean, they're not gone.
Well, I keep hearing about all that, but there's so many people that are employed by government, municipalities, firefighter, police, and all that. There's still quite a few people with pensions. In the private sector, they're nowhere near as prevalent as maybe they used to be, or definitely not as prevalent as they are with the public sector.
Oh, sure.
But there's still a lot of teachers and there's a lot of people that have or will receive a monthly, or have the option to receive a monthly pension when they ultimately retire.
Well, yeah. Now, I was looking at something from the National Institute on Retirement Security. Now, this is based on 2014 data.
Well, you read the most exciting things.
Well, this was part of a CNBC article, but yes, I do want to source these things. The retirement income sources for individuals aged 60 or older, 40% of sources are Social Security only.
That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately.
Really? Now, if you combine a defined benefit, which is a pension plan,
right,
and Social Security, 15.4% of people have a pension in Social Security, and 15.1 have just a pension, or just have a defined contribution, which is a 401k and Social Security. But those with they used to call it the three-legged stool.
Right. Pensions, Social Security, personal savings.
Right. If you looked at those, that is only 6.8% of people.
Now, I don't know what those numbers represent, because I don't know how I would show up on that, because I actually have a pension when I get to 65, which is closing in. It isn't good. It'll be enough to, if I still have an internal combustion engine, I might be able to pay for my gas for the month, but maybe not.
It'll pay your restaurant.
So if
tab.
somebody said, "Do you when you retire, are you going to be counting on Social Security?" Yes. Are you going to be counting on your personal savings? Yeah. Are you going to be counting on pensions? No, not really.
But you'll have one.
But I have a small one, a couple $100. I mean, and they're not taking that away from me either.
They aren't going to take it away from you, and it's still there. So when we talk about things like pensions, and one of the I don't know, aspects of pensions is how you're going to get paid. Professor, there are, I guess, just 2 ways you can do this. Is that right?
Well, you can take a monthly payment, or you can, in some cases, not all, in some cases they'll offer you a lump sum, basically a buyout, and say, you can have this much money today,
and we're done.
And we're done with you. Or you can have a monthly payment forever. Now, in doing that, you also have to check, if you're looking at the monthly payment, there are some, not a lot necessarily, but some, especially the bigger companies that offer this, that will give you some form of health care if you are on a monthly pension, but they don't give you that if you take the lump sum.
Oh, like they let you continue on their health plan?
Or they will pay part of it.
Wow.
But anyway, so you have to understand what you're giving up if you take the lump sum. But generally, when you get to retirement, like when I was looking at my pension when I was younger, it was showing me getting X amount of dollars. Well, now that I'm getting serious, I said, okay, now send me what the real options are. And so my what they call life-only option is the same number. It's been the same number since I left that employment in 1986.
Now, life only, meaning
my life.
Your life, they will pay you this much for as long as you're alive.
Whether it's a
you
week
alone.
or 150 years, I get a check. I don't want to live 150 years from now.
No, I'm saying I would hope the pension would last that long. I don't know about that, but yes.
Well, that's their problem. It is mine too, I guess. But then they say, oh yeah, but you're married, and by law, you need to offer a survivor option, meaning if you die before your spouse, there's something, at least 50% of what you're receiving continues to your spouse. Now that 50% is not based on the life-only number. Let's say that my pension was $1,000 a month. I'm just making that number.
You're talking about a life-only is
my life-only pension. So I've been looking at my pension for the last 20 years, saying I'm going to get $1,000 a month when I retire.
Yeah.
But now they're saying, okay, by law, you got to give 50% to your spouse if you die soon. Okay, $500. No, Rick. Because we expect with two people they're going to live longer than one person, at least we expect. Your pension during your life is going to come down from $1,000 to maybe $825. So if you die before your spouse, so you get $825 for the rest of your life, whether you have a spouse or not.
Yeah.
But if you die first, your surviving spouse will get 50% of that.
For $1,250.
Or $1,250. I should have made it an easier number.
That's okay. That's right.
So I have that option, and by law, if you are married, your spouse, you have to take at least a 50% option. The only way around taking a 50% option is to get your spouse with a notarized signature to say, I understand this is not going to come to me anymore. I will not get any pension if he or she dies too soon.
So it's the default option.
The default option is 50%.
Because when you have a pension, they offer you different ways to take it.
Right. And so the primary two are life only, meaning my life, the retiree's life only forever, however long that may or may not last, or a 50% joint and survivor option between a spouse, if there's a spouse involved. But there's other options. There is a 10-year certain, what they call life with 10-year certain. The pensioner usually gets the lifetime payment, but you can take it, and every one of these comes with a slight or major discount. You can do a 10-year certain, which means if I die the first week, the payments will continue to somebody. Maybe my spouse and I are unfortunately killed in a car accident, and neither one of us are left. So the survivor option doesn't mean anything. But if I took the 10-year certain, then the payments would continue for the balance of the 10 years from the start of it.
To somebody,
to whoever I name as the ultimate beneficiary. That there's 20-year term certain. So you've got the life. You've got term certain. You've got a 50% option to the spouse, a 75% option to the spouse, 2/3% options. There's lots of different options as far as, now not every pension offers every single option, but they usually offer a couple of choices. Some of them will, but one of the key factors is most of them, once we make that decision, if I take a lesser amount, and I don't take the life, I take an option that has some kind of beneficial option, my pension is locked in for the rest of my life.
Well, you would expect that.
There are some that use what they call pop-ups, so that, and this is more prevalent in the teachers that I've seen, teacher retirement systems than other places. But if my pension was $1,000 and I took the $825 to make sure that my spouse had some money going to her, if unfortunately my spouse died before I did, if I took the pop-up option, I'd go up to the $1,000 a month.
From there on.
From that point on. So there are all these different options. And so how do you evaluate them? And then they throw in the idea, well, instead of $1,000 a month, Rick, we'll give you $150,000 up front. Or some number. And that number is regulated by the federal government as far as how much they have to offer.
Is it based on, you said instead of $1,000 a month, maybe they'll give you $150,000 as a lump sum. That $150,000 is based on, and I know we're making these numbers up, but
the lump sum is a derivative of the monthly payment. The monthly payment is a contractual pension obligation. The monthly payment they're going to give you is what you have earned. It's like with a union plan, typically it's a flat dollar amount times years of service. So if it's $100 and you got 30 years, you get $3,000 a month. That's the life only, and then they do all the adjustments from there. With a lot of the municipalities or teachers and things, it's a percentage times the years of service times your average best 3 years. So it's a percentage of your income. It might be 2%, 2.5%, 1.8%. So, but it's all specified in up front when you start working there. So you can actually work the math if you wanted to. The lump, that is what you have earned. You have earned the monthly payment. The lump sum is a derivative of that monthly payment. Basically, they're saying, how much money do I have to have a pool today, earning what the government says is a realistic earnings rate, to make sure that this payment will continue to normal life expectancy.
Now, you could live longer, you could live shorter, but
the lump
that's
sum is based on those parameters.
Okay.
And the lump sum can change over time. If I've got 4 or 5 more years to work and they show me a lump sum today, that's not necessarily what will be available 5 years from now.
When you retire.
Because some of those variables, specifically the interest rate that the government says they have to use, could change. And the higher the interest rate, the lower the lump sum. Kind of like a mortgage. The higher the interest rate, the less I can borrow.
Explain that. We've talked about this before, but okay. So can you explain that in simple terms for folks?
Well, the one thing that is given, that is going to be solid in this example, is the monthly payment. The payment is there. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
But what changes are the interest rate, or is the interest rate that you may be able to earn, or what the government says you can earn to create. And so it's a backwards calculation from a mortgage. Most of the time when we're doing a mortgage, they say, I need $100,000, interest rate is X. What's my payment? And the higher the interest rate, the higher the payment. But the lump sum was the same because I wanted to borrow $100,000. In this case, there's a little bit different calculation. It's going backwards from it. It's saying, I know the payment. The government gave me the interest rate. How much can I borrow in that respect, or how much is that lump sum?
Yes.
And so it's a reverse calculation.
So the higher the
higher the interest rate,
the lower the lump sum.
Yeah, because if I have $100,000 that's earning 10%, I can make a payment out of that for a long time, X amount of dollars payment being given. On the other side, if my interest rate is only 2%, that payment's not going to last long. Well, the payment is given, the time period is given, so what has to change in that calculation is the lump sum. And so when they're doing the calculation, calculating the lump sum, the higher the interest rate, the lower the payment. Right now, we have a very low interest rate environment. And so that, in many cases, favors the lump sum, because the lower the interest rate, the better the lump sum. Because if you can't earn very much, you need a very large pool of money to make a continuation of a payment.
Yep.
And so in many cases, that lump sum looks fairly attractive. Now, is that an appropriate way to look at it? Is the only thing the lump sum? No, there's a lot of people that, regardless of how big that lump sum is, they should not take the lump sum.
Simply because
they're going to blow it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've seen this years ago, a couple decades ago now. Somebody took the lump sum I saw, and it was a very good number. I mean, we're talking like $700,000-800,000, and this was not a high sophisticated investor. It was basically more money than they could have ever imagined, and that's how they treated it. It'll never run out, and they just kept spending. And they were broke by the time they were 67 or 68 because they thought it could never end, because it was just such a magnificent number to them. And they didn't know how to handle their spending. They needed the discipline of the monthly payment to be able to budget.
Yeah.
Having an unlimited, in their eyes, source of cash, they bought a beautiful truck, a beautiful RV. They
had no concern that the money could.
Well, we tried
to
convince them. In fact, we even had to have them sign paperwork saying, "I understand this is detrimental to the longevity."
Okay. Yeah.
Now, anyway, but so some people need that monthly payment because they're not good with budgeting. Other people, and they're also not sophisticated and don't know how to handle money and don't listen to help. Other people are very good with handling lump sums. They've been dealing with their 401ks and other things, and they can handle the discipline of being on setting up a budget. And even though they could access more, they don't. They don't just go crazy.
Sure.
Oh, we got $500,000 left. Let's go. We could spend $100,000 on a new this or that. It's so. Some people should not take the lump sum. There's also the way pensions are calculated, and this is something you have to understand. I know several of the teacher pensions out there. The lump sum is not a function of the payment and the interest rate.
Oh.
The lump sum is purely a function of how much has been taken out of that individual's check going forward during their working years, plus some interest. It doesn't include any money from the district. It's purely your money that they've been taking, that's 7-8% being taken out of your check every week or every month and accumulating an interest. And so in those lump sums, in many cases, are not very good.
No, because they're not including the money that the
they're not actuarially sound. They're not based on your monthly check. But and in that case, the break even is maybe 7, 8, 9 years down the line. What I mean by break even is I've got $100,000 and I'm taking $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year out of it. Well, that's going to be depleted over 8, 9, 10 years. That's my break even. How long will this lump sum last, given basic conservative assumptions, pulling X amount of dollars out of it? And where is that break even? When does that lump sum run out of money? Because that's where the monthly pension makes more sense if you live longer. But if the break even age is like 95, well, the lump sum makes more sense. But these are questions, these are considerations. And I'll tell you that most pensions that are actuarially driven on the lump sums are based on, today's interest rates being fairly low, but are based on about an age 81, 82, give or take, life expectancy of the individual.
You're saying the
time period.
The time period of the lump sum?
The lump sum calculation. Remember I said there's three. You've got the payment, you've got the interest rate, and you've got a period of time to determine what the lump sum is. Well, that period of time isn't just, my family's really healthy. I mean, my grandparents are still alive at 104, so you need to use a really long life expectancy on my lump sum calculation. And yet, on the other side, this person may be saying, the company's saying, your family just doesn't live that long. So we're only going to use it can't change it. The life expectancy calculation and the interest rates are basically set by government rules. And so they have to use those. But you have to understand how that lump sum's calculated. You have to understand how it fits into your planning process.
So if it would seem to say that if you think you're going to live longer than, say, age 81, 82, something like that.
Sometimes the pension makes more sense.
The pension, meaning the monthly
payment,
the annuitized payment, or whatever.
The guaranteed monthly income, GMI. So, but when we're dealing with it, now the first thing we talk to people about when they're getting ready to retire is their Social Security and getting that straightened out. The next thing we're talking to them is about their pension. Which pension option are we going to look and assume that you're going to take, or you're retiring next week? Which pension option are you going to take? We build that into the system, into the plan, because once you have your guarantee, you know where the incomes are coming from, then you can determine how you should invest your actual portfolio to supplement, whether it's a lot at the beginning because you're postponing Social Security, or less at the beginning and more later. So we have to plot out these guaranteed incomes. So in deciding how to take a monthly pension, people, how much of a survivor benefit do I need to provide for my spouse? That's one of the first questions if you're married. Because it's like that life-only option looks real attractive, but it could basically mess up a survivor's issue. And so we have to look in what your life expectancy there. How much did they actually need? Do you have enough money that if you died, your spouse, or is there life insurance in place that if you died, and that's one thing you can do. You can take the life-only option, and as long as you have some life insurance to replace it for your spouse if they need it.
Well, see, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here.
Okay.
Because, the life-only option for many people does look attractive. And the question might be, well, gee whiz, is there any way that I could take this maximum my life-only option, which is the highest monthly payment I can get, and still have enough money for my spouse. If that pension were to disappear because I died in 5 years or however long it takes, and my spouse,
retirement party,
and my and my spouse outlives me, is there a way that my spouse can maybe continue to get?
Right. So how do we have to go through and basically then look at worst case scenario? Where is the income? How many assets are going to be available for that surviving spouse if you unfortunately had something happen to you? And if there is not enough income and assets, where are they going to get them from? The only other source is that pension or life insurance. So how do you cut that shortfall? Are they expecting an inheritance? That could be one thing. Are you living in a massive house that they're going to downsize? Mm-hmm. And that asset, because right now the asset is kind of not really available for retirement because you're living there. But if you're living in San Jose and you've got a $3 million tract home, and once somebody passes away, they're not going to live there anymore. They sell the $3 million and they buy a $1 million shack somewhere. They've got some extra capital they can use there to provide income for themselves in their survivor space. But if you're not in that situation, where is that extra capital going to come from? It's either going to come from you having to take a reduced monthly pension to offer the survivor, or if you have life insurance in place, that life insurance can supply a lot of the capital, or you could try to buy life insurance. Now, if you're 65 and retiring and looking at your pension options, I'm not sure that it's going to work very well to try to buy life insurance to replace that pension if you died within the next couple of years, unfortunately.
Because of the cost of the premiums?
Because of the cost of the insurance. Also because it's harder to be squeaky clean health-wise at 65. So if you're looking at having a pension and you want to take that monthly pension option of life only, you may want to start planning for that when you're in your 50s. 10 years before you get to retirement.
You mean buy the
life insurance
policy
ahead of time.
So
and get it into your planning. And in many cases, what are your highest discretionary cash earning years?
Probably
the last
your
couple
50s,
years,
60s.
When the kids hopefully are out of the house, when maybe the college is over, maybe a few weddings are done, and you've got some time where you've got your mortgage maybe has down a little bit. You got a little bit of extra cash. Hopefully, you could say you could maybe create a life insurance pool where after retirement your payment is not very much. So you pay a higher premium for the next 10 years while you have the discretionary cash. Then you retire, you don't have as much of a premium for the rest of your life, but it fits in. And heaven forbid you die, your spouse has enough to take care, your pension ends, but your spouse has capital. Heaven forbid your spouse dies. Well, you can either keep the insurance for your kids or cash it in if it's a life, or you both die at the same time, which means the pension would have stopped anyway, no matter what option you took, but there's capital for the kids.
You're talking about a permanent cash value in that case, life insurance policy.
If I'm going to try to replace a payment that's going to last for the rest of my life, I pretty much have to have some form of permanent insurance. Now, I don't have to have a cash value policy. I can buy a guaranteed universal life that carries me with the same premium throughout the rest of my life. But if I've got that 10 years of funding, I may want to go with something that can build up some cash, that can create a little bit of its own cash flow, even if it's only internal, to help pay the premiums for the rest of my life.
So to use these numbers that you used as an example before, if I have a pension that's $1,000 a month life only, and let's say it's $800 a month if it's my spouse, so
joint and survivor, whatever.
Right. So that's $200 a month less. If I can find a life insurance policy, and I don't know that I can, for $200 a month or less,
to provide whatever and so basically we back into what is the present value. There's all math. I know people don't like math. It's a 4-letter word and all that. But basically, what is the present value? How much of a lump sum do I need today to continue a payout of whatever the survivor benefit would be through a little bit longer than normal, or what their expected life expectancy
So
is?
I got to figure out how big a life insurance policy to buy.
Right. Or the other side of it is how much of that, $800 a month, $1,000 a month pension that we're talking about. Some of them are much bigger, obviously. Mm-hmm. How much does the spouse actually need? Now, we're going to lose some Social Security, assuming we both have Social Security. And so how much do we need to replace? I don't necessarily always need to replace 100% of the pension. I may be able to only replace half of it. So you can tailor it a little bit more assuming you're healthy, you can tailor it a little bit more by using the life insurance. But it's still, if you're looking at having a pension and you don't have a lump sum option that looks attractive, and many of them don't, they just have monthly payouts. My pension only has monthly payment. They don't have any lump sum options.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what your lump sum would be anyway. Probably not very big.
$387, which is enough to pay out my pension for the rest of my life.
Right.
But anyway, you just have to build this into the planning process. And if you're looking at, if you have a pension or not, and if you're looking at retirement, you should be planning ahead of time. And this is one of those areas to plan. If you want, maybe set yourself up while you're healthy, while you've got the discretionary cash, to set yourself up to have the flexibility, at retirement to take the life-only option. But it's very difficult to do at retirement because the funding period is short. I mean, your life, you don't have 50 years of life expectancy anymore. And your health may or may not be the greatest. And those are detriments to the premium.
Well, they are. And at that point, it's probably more worth your while to just say, let's take...
Well, you take the monthly payment. You don't have the option of the life insurance. You come back in that same, instead of $200 a month reduction on my pension, I could take the higher pension, but it's $500 a month for the insurance. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either.
No, that doesn't work.
Now, one disadvantage of the life insurance, even if I could find it for $200 a month, if the numbers work perfectly, and it was like, okay, my pension's $1,000, it's going to be $800 if I take the survivor option, but I need an insurance policy to protect it, and it just happens to be that lump sum that's necessary costs $200 a month.
Yeah.
So I could take the life insurance. So in essence, I'm getting an $800 pension either way, because I'm either getting $1,000 and paying the insurance company $200, or I'm getting $800 and basically paying the pension $200 to ensure that a payment goes to my spouse. The disadvantage of the insurance side of that one is that $200, that whole $1,000 pension is a taxable payment.
Oh, taxes, yeah.
So I'll have to pay taxes on the $200 that I pay for the insurance. Whereas if I take the $800, I'm only paying taxes on $800. Yeah. So
that's true.
And so that's one, and these are all little things you have to look at to decide which option is, but this is a key thing that you want to get in place, and it is something that if you have pensions, you should be planning for ahead of time, ahead of taking it. So let's say you take the life-only option, or you plan to take the life-only option. You set this up at 55, 50, you're going to retire at 65, just making numbers up, and you buy the life insurance when you're healthy, and at 63, 64, you ain't so healthy anymore. You are not healthy. And it unfortunately happens where you're not going to live that long. You haven't made the pension decision yet. So at that point, now you decide, I'm taking the survivor option. And I have the life insurance.
And you have the life insurance. You got both.
Because I got it when I was healthy, so it's relatively inexpensive. And I know I'm not going to live that long, so I'm going to give my surviving spouse as much as I can.
Sure.
We're going to keep the life insurance, and she'll get we'll make it work. I mean, so you have options.
Boy, there's a lot to think about. So to sum it up, if you're trying to decide lump sum versus monthly pension, annuity, whatever you want to say, is the first thing you should look at potentially what interest rates?
The first thing you should look at is, what am I comparing the lump sum to? Am I comparing it to the life-only option? Or am I comparing it to the joint and survivor option that's necessary to provide for, if I didn't have the lump sum option, which of the pension options would I take?
Yeah.
Okay, now we know what we're comparing against. What is this? How long, if I take the lump sum, can I continue this payment? And where's my break even? How long do we have to live before the pension becomes a better option, the monthly pension? Is it age 85, age 86? And so we go through all those little issues. Which option first? Now compare it. Now it's just we look at it in a vacuum and say, this would provide the same based on normal conservative assumptions until this. Now, the pension has the flexibility, which is both good and or bad. As I mentioned earlier,
the monthly payment.
No, excuse me, the lump sum has the flexibility.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So you could always take more. And so we go back to that kind of a question. But we first need to know where our break even is. Like I mentioned, some of the teacher pensions I've looked at, the break even is like 6-7 years. Okay, well, that lump sum stinks. let's talk about the pension options. On the other side, I've seen some with today's low interest rates where the break even is high 80s, and the people are like, well, I think that we would rather have the lump sum. So those are all the things.
Well,
we're looking at.
And if maybe this is money you don't necessarily need.
Well, we have to look at that too, because I've seen some where two parties, husband and wife, are two spouses. One of them has a very large pension. The other one has maybe a smaller pension, and maybe they take the lump sum from one so that they have some flexibility, but they set their budgets up on the other pension and Social Security, and so it depends on the size of the pension too. Like we were talking about my little pension later on in life, the monthly payment is not going to make or break my life, but $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 lump sum might be kind of fun to start retirement with.
Well, it might be nice, a couple of vacations while you're healthy, right?
And the other, couple $100 a month, okay, that would be nice. I'm definitely not giving it up, but
wow.
So you have to build that. Which makes more sense? We can do the math, and then we have to layer over the emotional side of what's going on in life.
Yeah, see, I've got a couple of smallish pensions, which won't make a huge dent. That's something to think about. Maybe the smaller pension gets
if they offer a lump sum.
If they offer a lump sum. Yeah, that's something to think about.
I don't have that choice because mine doesn't offer a lump sum.
It was a grocery store?
It's a union, retail clerks back when I was in high school and in my college days when I worked at a grocery store.
Do any of the union pensions offer lump sums, or am I thinking of...
I'm not going to say none do, but I've not seen one.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Oh. Well, these are options. These are decisions you have to make. We've been talking over the last couple of weeks here about decisions that you need to make, including, things like Roth versus traditional IRAs. How do I approach my 401k investments? And now another decision that you may have to make is your pension. Which one?
It's an important one that you need to plan for so that you have retirement the way you want it.
And like everything else, I think in planning, it's not just a cut and dried thing. It's not just a matter of, how long am I going to live? I mean, you've just pointed out several different things that need to be considered.
And the one thing that I think takes people by surprise the most is that they've been getting projections of their retirement since they started. And they've always seen the life-only option. And as they get close to retirement, then I got to make a decision? I don't get the number you've been showing me all along unless I take only the life only. It's going to cost me to provide for my surviving spouse.
Well, or they start receiving the pension, just start getting the payments. They say, wait a minute, this is not, I was supposed to get $1,000 a month. Why am I only getting $800?
Well, before you get the payments, you will have signed paperwork knowing what those payments are going to be.
Oh, well, okay. But right when you sign it, when you're going to sign it, you're saying what happened to
when you go to sign up for your pension, and your spouse isn't with you, so you can't get the notarized signature to get the life only, and you just sign up for whatever it is, you're not paying attention, and it's a different number than what you thought.
Yeah.
That's about the only way you're going to get the lower number just being paid out.
Well, that's just what happens, and it's all part of the planning process.
Now, there's one last thing for some people, and this is mostly in the municipal areas, that there are, like many teachers, they start off part-time and they're not actually covered by the pension. Some municipal workers, they start off in an area where they're not covered by the pension, but they're putting in years of service. When they get closer to retirement or at some point before retirement, they may have the option to buy back service time.
So pay for it?
Yeah. Give the pension plan a check or transfer it from your IRA and buy years of service. Somebody works in the school district in an uncovered area for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then they become a full accredited this, and now they're part of the pension. They work for another 20 years. Well, their pension is based on those 20 years that they paid into it. But they could maybe buy back those other 5 years. And so now their pension is going to be based on 25 years of service. And then sometimes it can get you to a point where you get a longevity bonus. They have longevity bonuses at 30 years. Well, I only had 26 years, but I bought 5. Now I got 31. And so you have to look at, what is it costing me to buy those years? And what am I getting back from it? And when's the break even? What is my break? If I'm giving them X amount of dollars, how soon will I get that X back with the increase in the monthly pension? 5, 6, 7 years? 25 years? One makes sense, one doesn't make sense.
Another decision you may have to make. And this is the stuff that you do, Professor Plum.
That's why we have fun with it.
You said you had fun with these, Roth versus traditional numbers.
Taxes,
You have fun with taxes. I don't get it, but I'm glad you do. It's like the guy that I have somebody that does all my painting work and all that stuff. Loves it. I don't know why, but he's really good at it. And so are you. If you want to talk to Professor Plum or any of the Lucia Capital Group advisors, there's a whole team of advisors, Professor. At Lucia Capital Group, 800-644-1150. Financial planning is what they do. Professor Plum, you work with all of the advisors.
It's fun.
All throughout, and any plans, any financial plans that are put together, they all go through you anyway. So, even if you don't get to talk to Professor Plum yourself, you kind of are in the sense that you can talk to one of the advisors who has the ear of Professor Plum. 800-644-1150, the number at Lucia Capital Group. They're happy to help you out. They do this kind of thing all the time. 800-644-1150, or go online, LuciaCap, LuciaCap.com. All kinds of resources there, financial planning resources at that website, too. If you just want some information, some free stuff, videos, it's all there at LuciaCap.com. And this podcast, too. Hey, you want to subscribe? We would appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber yet, please do become one at Spotify, and you can get all the downloaded content that we have every week. We've got new episodes talking about different aspects of financial planning. It is all about managing your financial future, and that's what we've done today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. For Professor Rick Plum, Certified Financial Planner, Professional, I'm Johnny Dean, your podcast host, and we will talk to you again next week.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. To the extent that this material concerns tax matters, it is not intended or written to be used and cannot be used by a taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding penalties that may be imposed by law. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. Different types of investments and or investment strategies involve varying levels of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment or investment strategy, including the investments purchased and or investment strategies devised by LCG, will either be suitable or profitable for a client's or prospective client's portfolio. Thus, investments may result in a loss of principal. Accordingly, no client or prospective client should assume that the presentation or any component thereof serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized advice from LCG or from any other investment professional. You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. The information provided is based on current laws, which are subject to change at any time. Lucia Capital Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Social Security rules can be complex. For more information about Social Security benefits, visit the SSA website at ssa.gov or call 800-772-1213 to speak with an SSA representative. Insurance services offered through LPL Financial or its licensed affiliates. California Insurance License Number 0518721. Universal Life Insurance is a form of permanent life insurance with an investment savings element. The price tag on universal life insurance is the minimum amount of a premium payment required to keep the policy. Beneficiaries only receive the death benefit. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. Annuities are long-term investment products designed for retirement purposes. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuer, subject to their terms and conditions. Early withdrawals may be subject to surrender penalties and, if taken prior to age 59 and a half, may be subject to an additional 10% federal tax. Annuities are not FDIC insured. Certain terms and conditions apply, so please read insurance company materials carefully. Rick Plum is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Lucia Capital Group, a separate entity from LPL Financial.